The Hustleshare podcast is sponsored by Lark, the leading super app for work in Southeast Asia. Frustrated with juggling and paying for multiple tools for work? Hate mixing personal and business messages? Improve your team's productivity by 10 times with Lark, which combines business chat, email, video conferencing, calendar, project management, real-time translation, and much more into one super app. Trusted by companies like Xiaomi, Glints, Kumu, and Mamalu's. Get it for free at larksuite.com today. The Hustleshare podcast is sponsored by One CFO, the Philippines' leading fractional CFO services provider for startups, scale-ups, and SMEs. Experience the power of tech-enabled, efficient, affordable, and expert-led fractional CFO services. Let One CFO handle your finances so you can focus on growing your business. Book your free CFO consultation today.
The hard thing that I didn't want to admit when I was burned out, because I was sick all the time because I was traveling internationally and I could never recover. I was like, wait, do I work forever and pay my bills, but I'm always sick? And I don't want to take drugs, right? I don't want to take medication because the doctor was like, you can't sleep, take this thing. Like, what if I stop the stress? Like, what am I working for? Yes, I get paid, but like how many? There's only 7 days a week. What do I do with my 400 shoes? I exaggerate. When I can only wear 7 in a week, right? Why am I working so hard, right?
Welcome to Hustleshare, the podcast that features the daily grinds of unique hustlers around the world to show not our differences, but that our hustles are very much alike. Now here's your host, Ronster Baetiong.
Welcome to the latest episode of the Hustleshare podcast. This is way overdue. We are 5+ years in, and I've been trying to get this girl for the longest time. The first time, she was busy. She was on the hiatus. The second time, I got busy too over the past couple months because we were building some crazy stuff. I kind of said that in the past couple episodes now, but soon enough, I will come clean in how that worked. But before that goes out of the bag, we need to give credit where credit is due. So one of the pillars of the Philippine startup ecosystem, who's been doing this for over 10+ years, older than I have. Okay, I'm a young part compared to them because they're the real legends in the game. But without further ado, let's welcome to the show the founder of Geeks On A Beach, Miss Tina Emperor. Whoop, whoop. Tina, finally, we're doing this.
Yay, Ron. Thank you so much for inviting me. Hello, everyone. Finally. So I am one of the titas of Startup PH and glad to be here finally, Ron.
Yeah,
I'm so proud of you. Amazing.
Same, man. Thank you.
Yes.
You. So weird. When I first met you, I was on startup number 1, greenhorn, big idiot, but so full of passion. I'm still full of passion now, but everything I try to do hurts my body now. I sleep early. I'm a completely different man, but it's still the same hustle inside. But again, I remember a lot of foundational memories that I got on breakthroughs and hustle that I did in the very early days of Geeks On A Beach that I still cherish to this day. So that's why I keep coming back. And I before I forget, I want to thank you for those opportunities as early as now. I'm forever grateful. Okay, there you go.
Thank you. You are an amazing human being, an amazing business person. You know, riding in the waves of entrepreneurship is never simple. It's always a lot of fun, right? It's challenging, but
a lot of fun and a lot of suffering. More suffering than fun, but the fun takes all the suffering away. But again, before I get carried away, Tina, I need to ask you the $1 million question. Tina, what's your hustle?
What's my hustle? So it's a combination of stuff. You know, at the end of the day, I've been doing Geeks on a Beach for a long time. So a part of me is always wanting to give back to the community and help others in their journeys, in their entrepreneurship journey. So we started Geeks on a Beach in 2013 is the first one in Boracay.
Yep.
And you were there.
No, I did not do 2013.
It was the 14?
I did Cebu. One? This is full circle moment for me when we come back.
No. Okay, and then the Boracay. All right, we'll talk about that. So my hustle is Geeks on the Beach. Is always wanting to help. And then, how do I get there? So I do Geeks on the Beach with other partners. I also have a day job like we all do. So we have lots of hustles. That's the only thing I can do. It's a lot of work already, 2 jobs. I know many people have multiple jobs. I can only do 2, and it's very difficult.
And both are hard mode.
That's right.
That's amazing.
Right.
But again, before we talk about the 2 jobs and again, how you basically do the balancing act and do well on both, I need you to buckle up real quick. Because before you even are capable of doing 2 jobs, there's always foundations to how you got it done. And before we talk about that, we're going to have to ride the Hustleshare time machine. I'll pick you up in Larshan. Okay, there you go.
Larshan.
My favorite place. Okay.
Barbecue place in Cebu.
Yep,
Yes.
not 20 Circle. I will pick you up right beside in Larshan. Okay. The best place in Cebu. Okay.
That's
you
right.
smell like Larshan.
Okay, commercial. Larshan, you should sponsor this podcast.
Fine. Grilled chorizo lang. I'm okay na. All right. Now, before that, Tina, again, I've been a good friend, but there's several things I've never actually gotten to talk to you about because when we talk, we talk about startups and we are passionate, probably equally passionate. Yeah. It doesn't really matter who has more passion or not, but we love this thing. But I want to understand, what was it like growing up? Because I know you're a pure-blooded Cebuana. But what was it like growing up, and what are the first hustles you remember doing growing up?
So here's a story for everyone. I never considered myself a hustler growing up.
Oh,
yes, because very sheltered family. So my dad worked for GSIS.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yes.
Government.
And yes. And so he studied law, but he worked for GSIS. He was a very extroverted, very social person.
Okay.
And then my mom was a teacher and then worked for the Department of Education.
Double government. Okay.
Yes. So very, very, low middle class family and working for government. So in my mom and dad's family, there are entrepreneurs, but not in our own family. So when you say hustle, I always think about the entrepreneurial mindset, which is very different than like if you want to work for government, you only want to work 9 to 5, you want to save, stable thing. So that was what I grew up with. My mom telling us, you have to go get education so you can get a job. This thing about entrepreneurship was never pushed by my own family, even though my uncle was had many businesses and all that stuff. So it part of your upbringing, part of your mindset today, is how you were brought up. So when I was in high school, college, very sheltered, didn't really do much. Although I, always was open to doing adventure stuff. So I went to Catholic school, all girls school, elementary and high school in Cebu. And then I'm like, I don't ever want to be with women again in college. So I was like, what can I do in college so I can meet other kinds of people, right? Don't have to wear uniform. And so engineering was a thing because I loved math. And then in engineering school at USC in San Carlos, you don't have to wear uniform sometimes because you have to go on a field.
Freedom.
Whatever it is. So I'm like, oh, there's this new program called Electronics and Communications Engineering. I'm like, that sounds wonderful.
Okay.
I'll do that. I'm like, I had no idea what I was getting myself into because it was so hard. It was so hard, but I survived by the skin of my hair. And thanks to all my friends, group of people, college friends are always for life. But that's what it is. But then my family moved to the US. I didn't really have a choice. I didn't want to go. So we moved here and So it's like family immigration kind of thing.
Fresh out of college.
Yeah, I was like, I was supposed to go earlier, but I was like, I want to finish school here. So after school, I was like, there's no choice. My mom said, you have to come. So, all right, I came.
Okay. So life as you know it, when in Cebu, technically that's the epicenter of who you were. And then all of a sudden, now you're 0 to 1 again. It's a completely different vibe, though you're technically an adult by this time. What was it like?
Yeah, I mean, I was only 20 years old. So the thing is that I knew I was coming. I didn't want to leave the Philippines because I was youngest in my family, right? And I'm like, I knew if I came to the States, I'd have to work. I'm like, I don't want to grow up.
Peter Pan moment. There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, so I came and I worked in the family business for a while. We're Filipinos, so we have nurses, and so our family had a nursing registry. Some of my family members, so I did that for a while, and then I started to look for jobs in the tech industry. So I worked for I worked for a small shop that supplied ICs, integrated circuits, for the space industry. Like,
What?
super
That's your
geeky.
first job?
A long time ago, back when I was a
Where?
baby.
Where was it in the US?
So this was in California.
Okay.
So Ron, I was called a management trainee,
Okay.
right? Because I was a
MT.
new person. And what that means is you do everything they ask you to do.
Yes. No, but that's the
But
best way to learn. If you get
but
that opportunity, that's always golden.
yeah, it was very difficult, but I learned a lot. And I was like, growing up in the Philippines, we're quiet. We're like, we don't be so aggressive and all this, at least when I was growing up. But then I learned in that job that if I didn't speak up, right, I would starve to death.
Yes.
So I always tell this story to my interns in the past. Like when I started working there, it's totally different culture. I was gung ho for the job. I knew I could do the job, but I just wasn't comfortable with like being outspoken and assertive. And we're like, we'd go to lunch, and then they would go to lunch. I'm like, what about me? And like, so I remember they're like, if I don't speak up, I would like not go to lunch with these people and not get my work done. If I didn't ask for help in some of the things that I did because I was new to it, if I didn't ask people to help me, I won't be able to accomplish my work. So that was my experience on being outcome oriented, on being like, if I want to get stuff done, I'd have to get out of my comfort zone in order to do that. So
I wanna find out two things, because when you get thrown into an MT program or management training program, you're technically being asked to be a super Swiss knife until you find out what you're great at. But also, let's not deny the fact that you're still new in the States, so you're acclimating to the culture. And you're in a highly stressful environment. How did you cope? And I want to find out is, what are the skills that you learned during that time of your career that you still use now?
Never surrender.
I know
Never
something about that. Okay.
Never surrender, never give up. So that is the saying that Doris Mongaya, my business partner at Geeks On A Beach, has been telling me lately. So realistically, when I did this job, I knew I could do it, right? I wasn't like afraid that I couldn't do the job. I knew there were some things that I wasn't familiar with, but the boss who hired me said specifically, there is a bunch of you that just came out of college, so you're not going to know a lot of stuff. This is why you're in the management training program. So we did have a set curriculum and all that stuff. And she was just saying, just ask questions. It's not going to be simple, easy time for you. You have to verbalize, and you have partners. We had like each of the management trainees had like a buddy that we went with. So it's always important, especially for Filipinos, to share your story, because the work may be hard, but if you can bitch about it, somehow it's tolerable. Yeah, so the work could be hard, but the team is very important. And as human beings, to be able to verbalize these things makes it less scary, less powerful. So we had layoffs and all that stuff. And I wasn't laid off because I stayed late to finish my work. And did I think about that? No, I was just like, I just need to finish my work because I don't want to be looked at as somebody who didn't finish their work or do their work. So I just did that. And that's what my boss told me later. Like, you didn't get laid off in this round because we can see your work ethic. So you might have talent, you might have education, but your mindset and your attitude to get stuff done goes a long way. And so that's the lesson I learned too when hiring people. You can always train people, but their attitude to get stuff done, to be in line with your mission, is very important.
Yeah, and you can only just give opportunities to actually carve that out, because it's usually innate. But the attitude also is basically the intent, but the outcome is really effort and discipline once that becomes sustained and consistent. Now, Tina, again, you've done this MT. What was the next stint after doing this for a while? Did you stay in the Valley in California? Well, how did you pursue? Because you're already in tech. That's being in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, it was very cool. It was in Southern California. So my family's lived in California. California is very multicultural, so you
Yep.
don't feel, so alone there. There's lots of Asians and Pinoys and all kinds of stuff. So when you're an employee, right, you earn certain amount of money. So let's say 50,000 pesos, whatever. So your next step is like, oh, I need to earn more. So if you're an employee,
The American dream.
I mean, like everyone's dream, I think.
Yeah.
When you're an employee, you're thinking, how can I get more? How can I pay more? So if you stay within the company, you would be beholden to the company's policies of how much salary increase you get, 5%, 10%, whatever it is. And maybe you get a bonus, right? So generally, at some point after this, I wanted to get a new job. So I just looked for jobs and better paying jobs. So I worked for Siemens, microelectronics. So it's Infineon now. So, and it is, how do you get there? You just apply for jobs and you just continue applying. And the job thing is really finding a match. So it's not like, are you a good person? It is like, what are the things you like to do? What are your strengths? And what are the jobs that are a fit for those, right? So any job, any project that you do is a matter of matching your strengths and weaknesses with the type of job you want to do, right? So that's like the traditional employee mindset. And then I worked for Western Digital. This is a disk drive company, this data storage company. And that company is very big, right? And I learned a lot there because I was in product marketing, and I also went to MBA school when I was there, because they had a program to reimburse you for tuition.
This is the one in Pepperdine.
Yeah.
Okay.
So why not? So, message to everyone there, if you work for a big company, if they have a tuition reimbursement program, take advantage of it. Because I was working, and then at night I would go to school. It wasn't easy, but what I loved about my program, it was very business focused. It wasn't an academic program where you had to do like 50 pages of theoretical thesis, right? This was more business oriented. So my classmates in MBA school were my suppliers and my competitors. I studied in Southern California. So that was amazing because our case studies were all about work. And so that was also your learning experience with working in a master's program. You usually work with your classmates and, different styles, and people complain they don't do work, you do the work, but that's nature, that's life, right? It's everywhere you go. You learn to work with others. So that kind of gave me the confidence, like, oh, okay, I can do this. And learned, because I had an engineering background, right? But having the MBA had kind of helped me move further in my career. While I was in my MBA, I always had open discussions with my boss. I was fortunate enough to have very supportive bosses. The way it works is, they plan you jointly plan where you're going to go next, or where you want to go next within the company, right? And so part of the thing was like, since I was in MBA school, they trained me as a product manager now. I used to be in marketing. So I did that. It sounds really difficult. It was difficult when I was doing there. A funny story I always tell is Western Digital at that time had made those hard drives, the old school data storage, kung yung wala pa yung solid state devices.
Right.
Wala pa yung RAM.
Yeah.
So I worked in California, but our manufacturing facility was Indonesia and Malaysia.
Wow.
So which meant that I would work 9 to 5 in California, and then 5 p.m. my time would be would be morning in Asia.
Yeah, correct.
And so I would like do another few hours of work.
Oh man.
And this is when you're so, what's the term? Naning is in Bisaya. Like when you're so hardworking, you're like, yeah, I have to work more than 8 hours. And then like I had no clue, but I just wanted to get this stuff done. That's part of the culture too, the company.
Yeah.
And so, we had manufacturing facilities in Asia, but when things go wrong, right? We have to do like
send Asian.
When things go wrong, someone would call you at midnight. To say,
oh wow,
there's 500,000 drives with like quality issues. We're gonna do a stop thing. I'm like, what? I don't get paid enough for this shit. Call my boss.
Wow.
No, I exaggerate. Obviously, I was with the team, but that was the kind of thing you're in. And it's a tech company. It's 24/7 operations. So it's very hectic, right? So I learned a lot there as well. And then you just move on. When you work in tech, you get laid off at some point. I got laid off, and then I got hired by my former boss. And then you become a consultant to your company that laid you off, that kind of stuff. So towards the end, I was an independent consultant, and I did a lot of international business development. So I attended conferences all over the world. That sounds like fun. But it was a killer as far as the time zone difference. And so conferences are very easy for me. That's why, I do Geeks on a Beach, not realizing that organizing is different than attending one.
Totally different beast, though. It's very difficult. Right.
Yeah.
Okay, now let's take our first break. And when we come back, we will now talk about what it took to actually let you go back here and actually do all of these things, do the tech stuff. Because when I met you, you're already here, right? I knew you were from the States. I can tell from the accent. You did not have the normal accent, right? But again, what?
Yeah,
I knew it.
Remember I asked you if you're from the US because wala ka ring accent, diba?
No, but I learned that in the call center and I told you about it. It was an edge I needed to do.
No,
but yeah.
I have an accent, yeah.
All right, exactly. So again, we will talk about that point of what brought you here. And of course, the origins of the OG Geeks on a Beach. We'll talk about that more after the break. Hey hustlers, are you a busy entrepreneur juggling a ton of tasks while trying to keep your finances in check? Thinking of raising money from investors or lenders but have no idea how to start? Well, you are not alone. Managing business finances is tough. But don't worry, I got something for you. Introducing One CFO, the leading fractional CFO service and technology provider for SMEs, startups, and scale-ups in the Philippines. Whether you need help with financial management, fundraising strategy, or scaling up operations, their team of top-tier CFOs and their game-changing CFO tech platform have got you covered. And they're legit because I've heard about them from a lot of YC startups actually that got founded in the Philippines, because they've helped a ton of VC-backed startups, scale-ups, and some of the best SMEs in the country reach new heights. One CFO is your strategic financial partner, providing the insights, guidance, and the tools you need to make smarter decisions and drive growth. Plus, they offer personalized support tailored to what your business needs, no matter the size. And what's the best part? It won't break the bank. One CFO services are affordable and accessible to businesses of all sizes. So if you're ready to level up your business and finances, what are you waiting for? Schedule a free CFO consultation with One CFO. Visit onecfoph.co today. That's onecfoph.co today to get your free CFO consultation. And we're back from the break. We are still with Gina Emper, who then told us the origin story of how she basically conquered the tech universe as a Filipina in the US. Now you've had all of these things in their stripe. You know you're good at a lot of things. The experience, the resume speaks for itself. I want to understand a couple things. What brought you back? Because most Filipinos that I meet, there's two types of Filipinos majority of the time that I meet in the US. If they're born here, okay, there's one, and there's full brain drain. They refer to the Philippines as the past. They don't want to come back. Yeah. Right? And there are Filipinos who are sea turtles, that's as Kaya Founders calls it, that they will always come back to the beach that they were born on to lay eggs. Right? And obviously you're the latter. But I wanna understand why you decided to come back. What brought you back, and why did you decide to not just do a vacation? What brought you back here?
The way my life works is, you plan certain things. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. Mm-hmm. So the big part of why I came back was that two things, right? I was burned out from my work. Okay. Right. I was sick all the time and I wasn't sure why. Mm-hmm. And then the biggest driver was that my mom, who lived in the US at that time, was sick, and she wanted to come home to our hometown in Cebu. Okay. Right. So in my family, we kind of decided, okay, she wants to go home. And at that time, for a couple of years, I had already thought about, I wanted to take a break from work because 24/7 is very difficult. Yep. And for the members of the audience, I'm very lucky in that I'm able to do these things because I don't have kids. I don't have a partner that says I can't just change my life overnight, because essentially that's what I did. Right. So when I said I would take a break, I would take a sabbatical, it meant leaving the US. I had, a house here and all that stuff and financial obligations. Like, how was I going to pay my bills if I quit my job and take a sabbatical? So it took me a couple of years to get there. Mm-hmm. And then when my mom got sick, it was like, I have no choice. I'm the only one who could take her home. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, okay, I'll take a sabbatical. I'll take a financial hit with no income, right? I had a little bit of savings, but I said if I lived in the Philippines, my expenses shouldn't be that too much.
You'd be able to stretch it out.
Right. Because the hard thing that I didn't want to admit when I was burned out, because I was sick all the time because I was traveling internationally and I could never recover. I was like, wait, do I work forever and pay my bills, but I'm always sick and I don't want to take drugs, right? I don't want to take medication because the doctor was like, you can't sleep, take this thing. Like, what if I stop the stress? Right. Like, what am I working for? Yeah. Yes, I get paid, but like how many? There's only 7 days a week. What do I do with my 400 shoes? I exaggerate. When I can only wear 7 in a week, right? Why am I working so hard, right? Correct. I actually had enough, but when you're in this, the parable of the boiling frog, where you have golden handcuffs that you're earning a living, you're like, oh, but you know,
don't know you're dying.
House, all this stuff. So, I mean, literally, I knew I was burned out and not well because I was walking the street in San Francisco and I would just start crying for no reason.
Oh my God.
It's ridiculous.
And it's not an easy walk, by the way. They're steep. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, newsflash to everyone, you know, when you're stressed and your body's telling you to stop, and you don't listen, that's when you start crying in the middle of the street for no reason, right? So I'm like, okay, there's something going on. I need to. So anyway, that was kind of like the adjustment. It wasn't easy. Again, it was a couple years and I had to give up some things, and that's fine. But I was like, what's the worst thing that can happen? The worst thing that could happen was I would have no income, but I would be in the Philippines and my aunt would feed me lunch if I didn't have any income.
It's going to be good lunch too, by the way. It's Cebuano lunch. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but again, I'm lucky enough because I didn't have to worry about kids and spouses and all that stuff. So anyhow, so that's my thing. I was always raised in the concept of, you know, you contribute to society as opposed to just taking. Yeah. So that's what drove me. And then it happened.
Okay. Now, when you got here, of course, you can't just let your aunt feed you. You were able to meet the right people. And I want to understand two things. So what were the gigs and what are the circles you got a part of, and how did that lead to Geeks on a Beach V1?
Yeah. So the concepts that you learn at work on how to problem solve and how to do a project, right? You apply it to your personal life. Right. So part of my plan when I was going to take a sabbatical was do research. Where would I go? What would I do? And I knew going back to my hometown was always going to be an option, right? Because I had a family there and it's affordable to live. Then there's the question of how to have ongoing income. So I've already done some research about it at that time. Actually, when I made my decision, I was living in Japan for a little bit. And then when I lived there, I Googled like tech in the Philippines or whatever. And then this article about Jojo Flores, the co-founder of Plug and Play Tech Center.
Shout out, Jojo.
A news article. Yeah. There was a news article about Jojo doing a pitching competition in Cebu. I'm like, pitching competition in Cebu, right? This was like 2010, 2011. Okay. I was like, I couldn't even get internet at the Marriott in Cebu at that time. So why is he doing a pitching competition in Cebu?
No, like because he already did it. So for those people, I'm just going to go on tangent a little bit. I recently had Jojo Flores a few months ago, another OG finally, and he will tell you why he started doing this and how he did it in the Valley. Okay, so he's trying to do it this time in Cebu.
Yeah. So I was like, oh my God, this guy's crazy. So I just emailed him out of the blue. I'm like, hey, I saw your article and were you really in Cebu and blah, blah, blah. It's like, yeah, you know, come meet me in Silicon Valley. So I did come to visit him. I'm like, so this is the guy. And he's like, yeah, there's all that stuff going on. You know, Tina, we have talent there. Da, da, da. And I'm like, so I believed him.
Yep.
And so from Jojo, I got introduced to the Science and Technology Advisory Council people, the field dev people. These are Filipino Americans that are trying to help with STEM development in the Philippines, science, technology, right? Math.
Shout out Denny Rojas. Shout out Christina Laskowski. There you go.
So they are the original mentors of mine and OGs that got me started on my journey. So I was already going back to the Philippines, and I was visiting once or twice a year. So I wasn't really clueless about what was happening. But so by the time I moved here, by the time my mom and I moved to Cebu in 2012, Jojo and Christina had already introduced me to like folks in Manila at UP, TBI, at all these other TBIs at in DevCon and all that stuff. So I got introduced to them. So by the time I did my first meetup in Cebu, because when I stayed in Cebu, I'm like, how do I meet these people? And I just set up a meetup.com event saying, I want to get to know the tech community in Cebu. Okay. My name is this, and I'm going to give you free coffee if you tell me what's going on, what you're working on in Cebu. And I messaged the DevCon people, and they're like, who is this Yahoo? Like I was a nobody. Yeah. But so I put the online meetup there, and 11 people showed up, and 6 of them were my classmates from college. So
nice.
That kind of stuff. Yeah. And that's where I found
Dave and Albert part of the 11?
So I don't think they were in the first one. I can't remember. But shortly thereafter, they showed up, and Mark Ben Consejo, I call him the Mark Zuckerberg of Cebu, was a son of a family friend, and he's like super genius. So he actually was the one who helped me with the first few meetups, because he was the OG of the developers in Cebu. So every time he was involved as a speaker, the folks would show up. So and I would just do the organizing part.
What did you learn in these first few meetups? What were people building? These are building blocks of the Cebu startup ecosystem, right? And what type of inspiration did you get out of that?
So at that time, startups were just beginning, I think, to be popular. So Mark Buen Consejo is a software developer and who had started selling software since he was in college, right? Okay. So he hadn't even finished his computer science degree in UP Cebu. He was already uploading software, and he said it's too old school. He built software for BlackBerry, for those who remember.
Yeah.
And he put it online, and then months later he got a check for like $1,000. Like, what is this check for? Because it was software that he built for that thing. Right. So wala pang Spotify, wala pang all these online payment systems. But the software he built, so by the time I met him, he was co-founder of a care sharing, which is a software development company all built in Cebu. They supply software that are used by doctors in the Netherlands, because one of the co-founders, his dad was a doctor. And they had like number 3 at that time, number 3 market share in the Netherlands. And they earn in euros, and they're built in Cebu.
Wow. That's amazing.
Right? So this is world-class talent that we have in the Philippines. And I kind of knew that, but seeing it in action was very heartwarming. So I was like, okay, this is cool. And so the way we function like as an international entity, right? So we're very human-centered focus, like what are the user needs? And it was actually the community who said, we want to build startups in 2012. And like, I don't even know what a startup is. So they're like, there's this workshop called Startup Weekend Workshop. And so I learned about it, and then we organized it. And then we had international connections that helped us. And Jay Fajardo and Pia Bernal and some folks in Manila were the first ones to do that. And so we did ours the next year.
Yeah, I was on the second one. I always come to the second one for some reason. The first one I never go, but in the second one, I'm like, oh, okay, I'll make my mark out here. There you go.
I mean, the important thing, dude, is you went and you found the right thing to do. So that's all good.
Okay, so from Startup Weekend Cebu, obviously, this literally now is the name startup is now being used. But again, there's not a lot of people who are doing this yet. And this was around 2012 to 2014. How did this turn into Geeks on a Beach, the original version of it?
When we did the first couple of Startup Weekend workshops, the Department of ICT with, at that time, Sir Mon Ibrahim, also knew Jojo and all that stuff. And they were like saying, look, the government is supposed to be supporting tech startups. This is a new thing for us. Since you're already doing Startup Weekend workshop, can we just partner with you? Right. And this is the government asking me. And at that time, I'm like, no, because I was like, my vision of government is bureaucracy and da da da. And like,
you're raised by government peeps, yo. So you should know.
So anyway, Sermon said, continue to do your events, Startup Weekend workshops, and we'll just partner with you, send you speakers, help you with the food. And like, okay, you're gonna sponsor a little bit or give us some funding for food. Okay, let's partner. So Sermon kind of taught me how to work with government, and it's not easy, but you have to be patient. But anyway, because of that, we did a lot of Startup Weekend workshops, and that's how I got to know Earl Valencia and Paul Pajo. All this time, I'm based in Cebu, and I was working Startup Weekend workshops, and Michi Ang was, Michi Ang.
Michi
So she joined Startup Weekend Cebu, didn't win, so she was kind of devastated. She's like, I don't want to go to Startup Weekend Davao anymore, Tina, because I didn't win. I'm like, you should go to Davao. And she did, and she won in Davao.
Oh, right? Boom.
See, persistence. And
Tina
she was the one who said, and she's like, Michi was the one who said, you need to meet Earl and Paul. I already kind of knew Earl Valencia from Stacks. I knew of his name. So when I went to Manila, I had lunch with them. So it was a lunch with Earl, Paul Pajo, and the late Jim Eisen, the Philippine internet pioneer. We had lunch around December 2012. And Earl was like, when we should do an event, Tina, da da da. I'm like, hey, if you sponsor it, I'll organize it. And he said yes.
Nice. I remember. Yeah, he was a VP. One of the VPs also of Smart back then. I remember going to his office in the Smart Tower. But okay, last question before we take our first break. So he said yes. How did that turn into Geeks on a Beach? Because this is 2012. One was 2012, 2013.
The first one is 2013.
Wait, how did that turn into Geeks on a Beach? Because I remember there's just one thing, and I'm looking at your LinkedIn, and this is probably one of the where we kind of cross paths a little bit. There's this thing that Dave McClure was doing around the world, around the region, called Geeks on a Plane. Geeks on a Plane landed so basically Geeks on a Plane, literally it's investors and startup founders and they literally go on tour from city to city to city to check out the startup ecosystem there. That's how I met Kylie, I met Dave McClure, Justin Hall, Michael Lintz, all the OG investors of Southeast Asia regionally came to town to kick it. Just so happened, my startup back then was guestlist.ph and Partyfile. Eventually became Partyfile. So I'm the guy who took them out to the best parties in town and made them all cray. Oh my God. I remember the crazy stuff that I still have core memories off of that stuff. That's how I learned it, how I made my mark, that I'm the party guy, right? And who doesn't want to be part of the party guy? That was my pitch though. My pitch was, I'm going to give you the best night ever. And that was our tagline, have the best night ever. There's a startup that can actually give you a hell of a night out here. And that's how I also got to meet the Geeks on a Plane people. What was the Geeks on a Plane experience for you? How did you meet them? And how did that turn into Geeks on a Beach?
Let me ask you, did you join the pitching competition when Geeks on a Plane?
Here's what I learned early on in my life. Okay, if you do the pitching competition, there's a high likelihood they won't remember you, because that's going through the front door. My mindset whenever I go to all of these things is I always find the back door. Now, every single one of people were there. We're not thinking about the pitching competition because that's deal flow. That's work. A lot of them were actually chatting up with me and where we're going to be there, what we're going to be doing tonight. And that was me. That was all me. I didn't have to compete with nobody because I was everybody's friend at that time. So I was like, all right, bet. So I did not do it.
Ron is the secret weapon for Geeks on the Beach.
There you go.
So the pitching competition for Geeks on a Plane,
I
actually helped organizing.
Oh, I don't even remember going there.
Yeah.
I did the parties.
It was at AIM, I think. And then how that happened is there's this guy named Bowie Guy.
Bowie, yeah, shout out.
Shout out, Bowie. So here's the other story. I had lunch with Paul Pajo and Earl Valencia. It was December 2012, right? I think it was around that time. Yeah, it was around that time. It was also December between Christmas and New Year. I will never forget. Bowie Guy had quit his job at LinkedIn. right? So Bowie had a startup. He sold it to LinkedIn and worked for LinkedIn. And after a few months or a year or so, he decided to quit, right? Because he's an entrepreneur at heart. And when he quit, he put out a press release saying, hey, I'm going to travel the world and meet all the startup communities around the world in 3 months. So if you want to meet with me, reach out to me. So he issued a press release. I saw the press release and I'm like, this guy's crazy. Because like, how can you travel to 30 countries in 3 months? You're going to die. It was like, because I traveled a lot. So Tina Emperor emailed this random stranger to say, dude, I saw your press release. It sounds amazing. But like, I'd love to help you because this sounds insane, but I'm doing startup work here too. Like come to the Philippines because I'm doing this thing with Earl. And he did reply the next day. He replied the next day. So be careful all the cold emails that you send out. Be careful what you ask for because you might get it. So I sent it nighttime, my time in the Philippines. When I woke up in the morning, he had replied to say, yes, I need your help. How can you help? Let's talk. I'm like, shit, what am I going to do? So we ended up talking right away. And he was like, I actually just landed in New Delhi in my first trip. Like, I don't know where to stay. I'm like, how can you land in a place and you don't have a place to stay? It's like, long story short, he had made arrangements with someone else, but apparently that someone else was 100 miles away. Still in India, but different city. Like,
India is a subcontinent, by the way. It's not a small country.
Yeah, sorry, Bowie, but these are the stories, somewhat exaggerated, but true to the fact that I'm like, okay, I can help you out, no problem. So we ended up working together. I'm like, I can work with you, but as long as you end your trip at Geeks on a Beach, right? And he said yes to that. And that's how I got connected to the 500 Startups Network because he was funded by 500 Startups.
I didn't know that Kylie and Dave invested in Bowie pala.
Yeah. So the 500 Startups in Silicon Valley. And then the name Geeks on a Beach, the name Geeks on a Beach was come up with during the lunch, right? Because when I said, let's do an event together, it was Jim Eisen who said, we can do it in Boracay. Because like, wait, Boracay has internet? Like, yes, because it's a tourist destination and we have all our activation events there. So the internet in Boracay is boosted up by Smart at that time because they wanted to do their events there. So then it was Earl who said, Geeks on a Beach. Because we already knew about Geeks. Yeah. And we did ask permission from Dave and the 500 Startups people to say, hey, we want to do this event and we want to plagiarize off of your name. And Dave's like, go for it. So we're good.
That's amazing. All right. Now let's take our last break. And when we come back, we will talk about GoAb 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever the number is now. And the crazy stuff that has happened. Of course, the impact that is done, the mistakes that was learned, and also the progress that was made. Let's talk about that more after the break.
Hey, hustlers, how many apps are you using at work these days? 5, 10, 20? Let's face it, there are chat apps for internal communication and emails for external. Cloud Drive for docs and wikis, calendars and video conferencing, spreadsheets and project management software, and probably yet another tool to connect them all. It is a mess. And if you're collaborating with cross-border colleagues, partners, or suppliers, it gets even more complicated. And don't you find it disruptive when your personal and business messages get mixed up? And if this sounds painfully familiar, switch to Lark, the leading super app for work designed to increase your team's productivity by 10x at an unbelievable fraction of the cost. With Lark, manage projects, chat with your team, build a knowledge base with wikis, and automate workflows such as approvals without code effortlessly from one app. No switching or integration needed. Join fast-growing companies in over 125 countries, including Xiaomi, Glint, and the Philippines' very own Kumu and Mama Luz, who trust Lark as their workplace super app. I've started using Lark myself for our pressure washing business service, Pop-Up Pressure, and I'm totally loving it. Want to see how Lark can revolutionize your business? Click the link in the description or download Lark for free at larksuite.com. That's larksuite.com, the productivity super app every business needs.
And we're back from the break. We are still with Tina Emperor, who then told us the origin story na of Geeks on a Beach. And now there's gonna be a lot of additions. So Geeks on a Beach 1, Boracay. What was the whole gist of this? And what just again, I didn't go Boracay. I did 2 and 3. Because I threw the parties on that one. But what was Boracay like?
So the first one, when we said we would do this, I had already done a bunch of Start Weekend workshops, and I was brave enough to do this because one of my business partners, Doris Mongaya, is a professional events organizer, right?
Boom.
And
really good.
Yeah, she's amazing. And she also does the PR for Globe in besides Mindanao. So she's done this before. She has a whole team that does this.
Okay.
Right. And then Dave Overton does our web and tech stuff. They have a software development company called Symph.
Yep.
And then Mark Deutsch of Happy Garahe does our creative. So I've always been a fan of Mark, even when I was abroad. Like, he's from Cebu. I'm like, dude, your work is amazing. And so when I reach out to him to say, we're going to do Geeks on a Beach, he's just like, oh, okay, I'll take care of it. And then he came up with this crazy thing, branding that we have, which is, I love, right? Yeah. So I had these 4 folks behind me, and my role was to, and when Earl said that Smart would sponsor, then I'm like, okay, I think majority of what we're going to do is going to be funded. We'll just fundraise. So we did that, and I had nothing else to do. I was on sabbatical.
Perfect timing.
I was like, we've already done Startup Weekend workshops, so it can't be that hard doing a 100-person event to like a 400-person event. It's very, very difficult. I put my life savings in it.
Yeah.
We had no startup investor. We each chip in our hours to do the work.
What was the hardest part? Because again, you don't know what you don't know until you're right in the thick of it.
The fundraising is always difficult. But to me, I think of fundraising as, again, trying to find a match of people that are aligned with your mission. Right. And very practical and business oriented when it comes to fundraising. Nobody ever has a budget for events, but some do, like the big companies. But there are people who have a budget for business development or marketing or HR. Right. And so trying to find those people. But the good news is that our nonprofit organization at that time, TechTalks.ph, had already done a bunch of events. So we were known as someone who is a nonprofit that can deliver. Right. So we don't mess around when we do big events like this. So I already had the contacts. It was just a matter of activating, talking to them to say, we want to do this bigger events. How, can you participate? Microsoft was, at that time we had friends there. They're like, yes, it is also aligned with our mission to do training. So it's kind of alignment. So that was hard. It's a lot of, because it's an international conference. So the costs are not to be messed around with. And then working with a hotel in Boracay and trying to have an international conference and working with a local hotel is very difficult, right? Because the standards are different. Yeah. So we're very easygoing culture. The international culture is not very forgiving.
Nope.
And we're very ambitious. So,
they're blunt.
Yeah, we're very ambitious. We want to make it high quality. So there's a lot of hand holding that happens in the back end to make sure everything works the way we want it to work.
Okay. So after Boracay, this is where I started. When I heard what happened in Boracay, I was like, shit, I got to be there again. Right. But this time I'm already have guestlist.ph. I was in the middle of fundraising. I recently got funded through Kickstart. And I remember that funding has already, the initial check, stupid me, didn't know how to freaking hold on to the money, spent it all on marketing. So that's why whenever I hear people who would be like, hey, I'm fundraising and I'll spend it on marketing, like, oh man, I did that and I already know how that ends. But I remember, Tina, it was me doing a Tina Amber move on you in Boracay. I heard what happened in Boracay, and this time, you're doing it in Movenpick in Cebu. Right? I said, Tina, do you have an after party? And like, no. Okay, I'm Ron. I do this. This is my startup. If you let me attend for free, I'll throw you the after party. And he said, bet. Okay.
I said, yes.
I'll make sure the party is crack-a-lacking. Okay. It's the craziest party you can come in. I think I lived up to my name. But what you did not know there, I was so butt-ass broke that I was literally a week away from not making it. And when I did muster up some money, I was just enough to buy a flight. And it was enough for me to rent a janky-ass hotel, not on the other side of that street where Movenpick is, but it's already the dirt road. I swear it's the jankiest hotel I've ever stayed on in my life. There was a ceiling. It's just whatever it takes. And my target back then was simple. I knew the best investors that I needed to talk to was there. And I thank you, because that's where I met Kylie. That's where I met that a lot of the friends that are still my friends now.
Yeah.
And again, my pitch was simple. The same thing I did with Geeks on a Plane. What
Yeah.
did I do? I gave the best fucking party. I still
Yes.
remember. I know you remember flashes of this, Tina. I remember Paul Pajo, Bowie guy getting shoes because he didn't get shoes. Ronald's lent him his shoes so he can get in the club. Ooh, we in Mandaue. But again, it was great. But I thank you because I met the leads that I needed to lead there. I even pitched, and I remember being dejected because when I pitched, people said no.
Yeah. Yeah.
I went home dejected, like, fuck, what's going to happen now?
Yeah.
And fast forward to Boracay for Geeks on a Beach #3.
Yeah.
You know what I had to do? Because I worked so hard to get there. I announced that I got the funding during GoAb 3. It took me a year to go from guesses.beach, survive for that whole 12-month grind, and get funding again, full circle in GoAb. And that's why I'm forever grateful. Because that's when I learned how to be a cockroach startup. That in the end, when this happened again, when I was in the middle of doing what I'm doing here in PNA, and that happened to me, though it's a bigger stakes because before it was just me and one guy. That's my payroll. But now I had like 30 souls that I had to take care of, but I knew how to be a cockroach startup. And the only way you win as a cockroach startup founder is when you have other cockroach friends that can help you out. Cockroach feeds off of fucking leftovers. If there are leftovers, you fucking eat until you eat the whole dish, the main dish. That's when you get to level up again into a different animal. But that's why you're gonna have to scratch and claw, but you need to keep scavenging and doing that. And the leads that I got from GoAb 2 are eventually the ones that gave me the opportunity for GoAb 3. Fortunately, I fucked it up down the road still, but again, what I learned is not who you meet. It's what you do when you get that shot. And I remember pitching Kylie and Justin Hall by the beach club in Movenpick. They said no. But it was never a never. And I just kept clawing away at it, finding the right path. It was so difficult. But eventually I broke through. And that's a life lesson I'll be forever grateful. That's why whenever you fucking call me back, I will come back because I learned that I got that opportunity from you. So thank you for that.
Cockroach
mode.
Cockroach mode.
Yeah.
No, thank you. This is a lot of your success is because of you, right? So you find the right opportunities. We make the opportunities for you, but you show up and you deliver, right? So us doing the event is just an opportunity for folks like you to come and elevate and 10x or 100x, whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
But a big part of your success is because of you and how you want to pursue your mission in life, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the message too for the audience is that knowing what you want and knowing what you're willing to go through in order to get what you want is very important. Right? Entrepreneurship is not safe. It's not boring. It's very challenging. So you have to think about, is this the right thing for me? Is my personality the way it is? Totally okay to work for a company and be safe forever. Not everything, startups are not for everyone. Geeks on a Beach is not for everyone. There's so many other events there. You have to decide, what are the business challenges I'm trying to address right now? What are the wishes that I have for my personal, professional journey? And which event will get me there?
Yeah.
And so for Geeks on a Beach, it's really for people who are motivated and driven to get stuff done. And we make it easier for you because you have 2.5 days to do that with the same amount of people.
And that's the magic of GoAb. People always like, this is not work. Yes, it's not supposed to be like work because people are in their vulnerable states. They're relaxed. And that's the best time for you to actually make relationships. I'm a living testament. Last year in GoAb in Bohol again, when you did that, I remember coming back and like, holy shit, a couple of guys got a solid round of funding and then some during GoAb because they got to hang out with the investor that nobody was actually talking to. And they got like what 100K checks. Like what? How did that happen? Where was I? Oh, Tina was making me host some stuff. Okay, there you go. That's why I missed out on the checks. Just kidding.
Dude, this year you have to go hustle and do your own thing. We
I
need
am.
another
You bet your
story
bottom
from
dollar. That's why if you make me host too many stuff, I will not show up. Just kidding. But okay, again, I always come back. But let's fast forward a little bit. So, how many more editions of GoAb did you do before you took a sabbatical again? And why
Yeah.
did you decide to like put a pause over
Yeah.
Geeks on a Beach at that point?
So we did it for 5 years. It was amazing. It was my ikigai, except for the money part, because it's a nonprofit, right? So I loved it, but it is a lot of work. And a big part of it is my standards and the way I want to get stuff done, right? So I want it high quality, but it's very hard to do that. And I didn't realize, that I was an entrepreneur myself, because we had 5 people working on it full time. We had events during all year. We worked with government agencies and companies that would ask us to do events. We love what we were doing. It was just very hard to make it sustainable. And I was kind of, because the way my personality that I learned is when I do something, I go like 150%.
Yep.
And it's not the right thing to do, because you will eventually burn out, right?
Until you start crying in Sanfo again. There you go.
Yeah. So I was missing, my like intellectual stimulation and just first world things. And I was like, I love what I'm doing, but I can't continue. I need to take a break. And there was no one else to take over. So I just took a break. And I was very open with everyone. Fundraising was very difficult.
Yeah.
I also learned as an entrepreneur that I spend a lot, which is not a good thing. Because like I want to make everything good, but you have to be smart about what you do stuff.
The PNL is what matters. There you go.
Yeah. So I need a good, strong finance partner, but we did that. And so we did that for 5 years, and I came back to the States. And around the pandemic, everyone was like, every year when we stopped, people would always like, when are you going to do it again? And I would be like,
I remember your answer. Like, nope, never again. There you go.
Because like I had nothing left in me to do it, because I wasn't pacing myself properly.
Yeah.
And then after the pandemic, my team in Cebu was like, we're so bored, we need to do something. And the biggest thing that drove us to came back was DICT, Department of ICT. So Attorney Josel Batapa and Miss Emmy. Attorney Josel, when she became undersecretary, she was like, she knew that she wanted to support Geeks on a Beach, and funding is always an issue. So she's like, we're going to allocate budget for it. And so they were trying to find me September 2022.
Wow.
Sent me a message on Facebook, and I wasn't paying attention to Facebook at that time because I don't use Facebook.
First of all, we're in a different time zone too. Okay, you're in Houston.
And then they couldn't find me. So finally, January 2023, like, Tina, we have budget for Geeks on the Beach. Let's bring you back. And I'm like, no. But I did ask, my team, like Dave, Doris, and Mark, what do you guys want to do? Like, we love it. We want to bring it back because we're so bored after the pandemic. I'm like, okay, basta, you do all the work, because I have all that stuff. I mean, I have another job. And DICT was funding most of it. So we were lucky. They purposely said that. We wanted to give funding so you'll come back. This year, they didn't give so much funding, but they still support us.
Okay.
But that's how we came back. So last year, if you notice, a lot of the tickets were subsidized by them. This year, not so much.
Okay. Now, I have a couple of questions. You have the unique point of view of seeing, I always say it, and there's several waves. The current wave of startups is totally different, but it also is going through a winter. But you can already compare the type of founders and startups and the type of ecosystem we had when we were starting out. What are the things that stick out the most from that your point of view of how different it was before to what it is now?
Yeah. So in 2013, 2014, there was probably 5 VCs, a handful of startups. Now
I got them all drunk.
Now there's so much more. So it's a bigger community. There's a lot more people doing accelerators, incubators. There's a lot of TBIs. The government has stepped up. DOSC has done an amazing job of creating this technology business incubators in universities, which is good for our long term, right? Because we need to have that foundation and that level. While Kubo, Idea Space, Kickstart continue to do different stages of investments. And then there's for me, newer ones like Kaya Founders and
Yes.
Foxmont and HG. So I've gotten to know them last year. That's why I focused on getting to know the investors last year.
Yeah.
And they had heard of Geeks on a Beach when they were at Lazada or Zalora and Grab and all that stuff. So ecosystem building is what we love to do. So we want to be the international component of the tech startup ecosystem in the Philippines.
Mhm.
It's very, very challenging to do it because it's a big ecosystem, and by nature of startups, we don't always coordinate what we're doing. Right?
Mhm.
So I'd love to be efficient.
It's organized chaos. That's what it is. Mhm.
Yeah, but I do try to keep in touch, off the record with all the existing players to make sure that we are on track. So I always tell people we are an ecosystem builder. Everyone is invited to Geeks on a Beach. I do understand that some Filipinos want a special invitation with their name on it. Dear Ron, please come to Geeks on a Beach.
Come on,
Otherwise,
let's not make
they
it hard for Tina anymore.
They will badmouth me. You didn't invite me. That's why I didn't go. I'm like, holy crap. Like, we have an open invitation, but in fairness, for government agencies, for companies, we need formal invitations, and please reach out to us.
That makes sense. But come on, if you're just part of the ecosystem, you're not here to be a VIP. Everybody has an active role to actually do it. And this is happening at the Philippine Startup Week. This is the marquee event, right? It's not an accident that the GoAb was revived during Philippine Startup Week, because it is the marquee. Technically, it ends the festivities during that week. So there, but
so I just want to say I did have a learning this year, even though we've done this for a long time. So in fairness, there's a lot of women entrepreneurs, leaders, geeks that are out there.
Yeah.
But by nature, maybe how we were brought up, our culture, we don't normally raise our hands and volunteer to speak at Geeks on a Beach. Right. Because I don't have a lot of women speakers. Right. And I was like, why is that? And every time I invite women, ang tagal mag-respond because everyone's busy. But the men CEOs are like, yes, I will be there.
Bet, Jane.
So for the women, we have to make extra effort. And I encourage everyone, if you're a woman or if you have leadership in your companies that are women, please push them out the door and get them the spotlight that they need, because they deserve to be champion.
Watch out for my panel actually this year. Okay, there you go. No, because if you've been living under a rock, right? Or the past, say, 6 months, I can name at least 4 startups that have raised over $1 million at least, that are all women led.
Yeah.
Crazy. Literally, this year we're standing on the shoulders of super women founders.
Yeah.
And it needs, but again, what they have a handicap, and I've said it before, said it again, that women founders do not have to deal. I mean, they deal with more than what dude startups founders do. So we need to discuss that, and hopefully in this thing, I finish my panel. But bet you bottom dollar, I will make sure that the girl power is front and center in this year's GoAb. Right?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, there, I said it na, ha? Okay, but Tina, what else should we look for? Where's the venue this year? There's a water slide park. So if you can't see me, I'm probably in the slide. Okay, just give you some. No, I'm sleeping, nursing my bad back. Okay, but what should we look out for this year? When is the event specifically, and what does GoAb Cebu? Full circle. I'm gonna be a little bit nostalgic, because I will remember specifically where I fucking booked, and the first one in a janky ass hotel. I don't even remember the name, but yeah, it was janky.
So geeksonabeach.com is for those of you who are living under a rock. It's an international tech startup conference for those who are passionate about tech, startups design, and making the world brighter, is the way we see it. So anything related to technology, building tech-based businesses, startups, and then the design, creative community that are in that space. This is what the event is for. It's for learning. It's for connections. It's for deal making. It's for finding a community that will support you and challenge you to do whatever you want to do in your personal life and in your professional endeavors. So if you're someone who is driven and motivated to do better than where you are now, Geeks on a Beach is where you want to be. We will have investors, we will have founders, we will have technologists, we will have government officials there, which to me, government is a critical pillar in building an industry
Come a
as we
long way.
grow, because we need the regulations to help us move forward. And then we will also have a bunch of students from the local Cebu universities that will be attending, because we need the early stage people to be inspired by those of you who have done it, been there, done that. So it is going to be geeksonabeach.com is going to be on November 13 to 15. It's during Philippine Startup Week. And I want to clarify that the main conference is on Thursday, Friday, November 14 to 15. On day 0, on Wednesday, November 13, we have a smaller session we call Masterclass. So this is like deep topics, 2-hour discussions on deep topics. So parang seminar type. So for those of you who want to learn more about the specific topics, instead of just 30-minute panels, then you do all 3 days. And we're at 20% off right now until October 30. And if you use the discount code Cebu, you get a total of 25% off. So geeksonabeach.com, discount code Cebu, 25% off until the end of October. We guarantee that if you show up, you will have an amazing, magical experience. But you have to show up and you have to prepare and reach out to me if you have any specific needs. If you're a company, we're still looking for sponsors.
Okay. But Tina, a couple of things that I want to find out. All right. So we've been doing this before, and you've seen people who've really been able to maximize the Geeks on a Beach experience. I'm one of them.
Yeah.
My playbook before was throw the best fucking party, get them all drunk, and then let them remember you for life. It was weird last year because I'm not throwing no party, yo. I'm a tito now. I'm a changed man. I'm sleeping. Okay.
Yeah.
I have a podcast to record pa. Okay. So that's what I had to do. But what are the tips that you would give or share for those, say, let's just say founders? Let's start with founders first, on how to maximize being Joab that you've seen work. Yeah.
So I'll respond to that with something that I heard about last year. Some of the Manila founders I heard were saying, we're not going to go to Geeks on the Beach because these are the same investors that we have pitched to and they have said no to us. So why would we go to Geeks on the Beach, right? You know this story. But so that is a true statement. Yep. And when you are a fundable startup, you will eventually get funded. Not now, not today, maybe in the future when you have a better business model, right? What Geeks on the Beach also did in the meantime, because you weren't there, is we had a bunch of different kinds of investors from other countries, Malaysia, Thailand, Singapore, that were new
dudes from the US.
That were new to the ecosystem, right? And so Wade Eyerly was one of those people from Double Impact River. And that was his first go-up. And it's like, I just want to invest in the Philippines. And it was the right timing for him. He had money and he was ready to spend it. And so there was a handful of investors that stayed through the entire Geeks on the Beach. And Wade got to know all the founders that were there. So last year we had more investors than founders, to be honest with you. So DICT was the one inviting the founders, but most of the founders they invited were early stage because that's the nature of their work. And so like Joseph Worker from Humble Sustainability, so had 5 VCs in his hand, right? When they were doing early morning boat trip to do dolphin watching. So you may not get funded by these investors, but you get to know them really, really well. They get to know you and trust you as a person so that later on, when you have a better business model, it's easier for them to fund you.
I did that in 2014, 2015.
Yeah.
In between. So again, you don't get that opportunity where you actually become friends, because majority of the time when you're in a work setting, the guards are on. And it's going to be hard to penetrate that and make friends. But here you get an opportunity to be liked and to be likable. And build strong friendships, not even a relationship, friendships that, you you carry when I see people that I've met in Joab before, like, what's up? It's like, like we haven't, we never lost a beat. So that's the magic. Make those opportunities where there's always going to be downtime in Joab. Whether you're like, all right, I'm sleepy. You go there to the lounge and you see another dude, that's the perfect time that you actually do it. And that's where the magic actually happens.
And so the key thing that why this is successful is that you are ready to begin with. You have a proper product. You have your elevator pitch. You're a reliable, credible person. That's why people fund you. We just make the process easier for you because a lot of the investors are there. And GoApp, it sounds like fun, but you're going to be working all the time.
Yeah.
So
don't wake up, okay? Don't sleep. Don't don't
show up.
Don't get too fucked up the night before and between night 1 and night 2. I mean, day 1 and day 2.
Yeah.
You got to hustle, right? But you got to be strategic and find the back doors because there's a lot of back doors.
Yeah. And if you're new and if you're confused, if you have any questions, reach out to me, reach out to Ron, just touch base with us to say, I want to do XYZ, any suggestions. And we're always happy to help. We do have sessions, curated sessions at Geeks on a Beach to ensure you have the right connections. So we have the lightning pitch. We just open it up for applications. We have the lunch with the speaker where the speaker will sit with you in your round table. And then we have office hours. Some of our speakers have volunteered to sit with you for 10, 15 minutes.
Yep.
If you like each other, you can meet each other offline. So the event is curated to foster good connections, but you have to be ready and you have to show up.
Absolutely. Again, thank you very much, Tina. And I will see you soon in a few weeks before before we do it all again and we go full circle. But again, if you haven't really understood yet why you should go, Tina, feel free to invite people over to GoApp this year in 2024. And if they have questions for you, where do they go and how do they do that?
Yes. So if you're someone who has a dream, you want to accomplish that dream, and you're in the tech startup space, invest in yourself, and take the time and resources to show up at Geeks on a Beach. The return on your investment is going to be so much more than you would ever think. The connections you make will not just be for that event, but it will be for your lifetime. As Ron said, we're happy to do this event, but we need you to show up.
You don't need to book the expensive hotel. Find the junky-ass hotel in Mactan.
We can recommend local housing for you. See you all at the beach, Ron. Thank you so much.
Right. Thank you so much, Sheena. Before I let you go, follow us whenever podcast app you're listening to, whether Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If we did say some jargon, it's going to be the show notes at hustleshare.com. If you also want to support Hustleshare and doing content like this, please do subscribe at premium.hustleshare.com. Again, Stina, thank you very much.
Thank you, Ron. Thanks, everyone. See you.
All right, I'll see you guys in the next episode.